Hey Prepper Recon fans, welcome to another edition of the PrepperRecon.com podcast. Our mission is to bring you great interviews with preppers from around the globe so you can be better informed and better prepared for everything from a hurricane to the end of the world as we know it. This episode is brought to you by CampingSurvival.com. Whether your plan is to bug out or bug in, CampingSurvival.com has all of your preparedness needs, including bug-out bags, long-term storage food, water filters, gas masks, and first aid kits. Check them out online today at CampingSurvival.com. Be sure to enter coupon code PrepperRecon for a 5% discount on your entire order. Today's guest is author of the book, The Money GPS, David Quintieri. David, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure to have you on. Tell us a little bit about The Money GPS.
Well, I started reading Austrian economics books just as a hobby. And one book after the other, I noticed that this collapse is absolutely unavoidable. So I started to talk to friends and family, and of course, they didn't care. So I took my notes that I had and looked at them and decided, you know what, I can make a book out of this, and I could present it to them and really prove it to them. So this started as just a small project that I wanted to do. I wanted to make the book very, 100 pages or less. And as I dug up more and more research, I became more and more worried about what was going to happen. And it turned out to be a big project, nearly a 300-page book, 222 references. And essentially, this is my warning to people. And it does so without using jargon, without using these terms that no regular person knows about. It's just no learning curve. Regular people can read it and understand it and prepare. It empowers people and gets them to prepare.
Mm-hmm. I was looking through it a little bit before the call, and you've got some little charts in there and some little pictographs that are very, very clear and something that the everyday guy can understand. You don't have to be a economics major to understand it.
Exactly. I did a lot of diagrams throughout there. So I designed every one of those diagrams that's in that book, and a lot of people learn visually. So I decided I want people to be able to visually learn as well as learn from the text itself. So you'll get a paragraph or a page or whatever, and then you get the picture version of what I was talking about, and uses little stick men and other things like this. So to make it really simple for people to get a grasp of.
Yeah, I read a lot of economics books, and I've read a lot of explanations for what a CDO is, a collateralized debt obligation. And you had a little picture in there that just really said it all. It was just basically a little ball of credit cards and auto loans and subprime mortgage loans, and all going into this suitcase, and the suitcase getting chopped up, and it was just the perfect example of what it is that nobody else could really get across so clearly. It was great.
Yeah, they're trying to make it convoluted and make it so difficult to understand, but what I like to do is break it down to its absolute most simple. And it all comes down to, what can you buy at the end of the day in real goods? No matter what the stock's price are, no matter what the Dow Jones is at, that doesn't mean anything to me, and it doesn't mean anything to the average person. All that makes a difference to is the people who control these stocks. They can move these numbers up and down, but at the end of the day, it is us who have to buy our food to feed our families. That's who matters. That's what matters.
Yeah, that's right. When do you think the collapse will happen?
I like to look at it that we are already in this collapse. Mm-hmm. It's not going to be one day you wake up and there's a riot going on and all of a sudden you got to head out, the stock market's closed, the banks are closed. This is happening slowly over time. I believe one of the biggest triggers was 1913 with the setup of the Federal Reserve. Mm-hmm. Another big trigger was in 1971 when Nixon took us off the gold standard. And then a huge one in 2008 where they said, okay, that's it. The financial system is owned by us, not by the people. The people have no say in it at all. And they are collapsing the system, and they are using the derivatives market to really crush us, and that's going to be the next trigger, the derivatives. There are 1.5 quadrillion, I'll just repeat myself, 1.5 quadrillion in derivatives, which don't actually exist. It's completely fake, and they're going to use that to crush the economy, and of course, they're going to crush us with it.
Wow. And then going back to what you said about it's something that's happening slowly over time. It's kind of like you go to the grocery store last week and you buy a pound of coffee and it's $5, and you go this week and it's $6, and not only is it $6, but it's not a pound anymore, it's 12 ounces.
That's right.
So that's really basically that's what the collapse is. It's just a progression of those types of events that keep devaluing our currency.
And I'd like to bring in another point to that. So they are inflating the money supply, but at the same time, like they did in Cyprus, they're now going to start doing bail-ins. So for those who haven't heard about this, the bail-in strategy is a literal confiscation of a percentage of one's bank account.
Yeah.
So we never thought this would happen. Even me, I'm a complete bear at this moment right here. I did not think they would go in and do it this route. The finance minister in Canada said, we may do this if we need to. Sure, it's only, you're safe. Don't worry, your accounts under $100,000 are safe, but mutual funds are not safe. And then they, try to cover it up like it's nothing. But this is what they're going to do. They cause inflation on one end, but that's happening too slowly. People are waking up. The people listening to this show right now are awake. Mm-hmm. And these people know what's going to happen. They're telling their friends. Everyone's waking up. And this is going to be a big problem for the New World Order. So what they're doing is now going with the bail-in strategy to quicken their pace.
Yeah. Now, when the bail-ins start, I think we saw Cyprus, and I think a lot of people thought that was a one-off and that it's not really going to keep happening. But then you keep hearing that that's probably going to be the template for the future. And I think that when people start to wake up that is the template for the future, do you think that large depositors of over $100,000 or euros or whatever there's going to be a run on the bank by large depositors?
Absolutely. That money is gone. If your money is in the bank, your money doesn't belong to you, it belongs to the bank. And we've known this for a long time, but we assume that every time we've gone to the ATM before, you've always been able to take out your money. So why would it be any different? This is the normalcy bias. People are just so used to everything being right and everything being okay, but that's not the case. People in Cyprus thought everything was okay. And one thing led to another, and they couldn't get their money out. There was a bank holiday. Bank holidays have happened many times in history before, many different countries. Nothing's different. The only thing that's different now is that this is a worldwide problem because of globalism.
Yeah, so you might not want to keep 100% of your money in the banking system.
That's for sure.
You might not want to keep more than what you need to just pay next month's rent and the light bill and the cable bill.
I agree. You want to have a minimum amount of your savings in bank. Of course, we need banks to do daily transactions. We need to buy things. That's obvious. However, we don't need to keep all of our savings in the bank, and that is quite dangerous. And you need to diversify. If you're holding just American dollars, that's your diversification. That's not enough, and ultimately you could be earning more money just by deciding where you want to have your money. It's as simple as that. We can go further into that. I don't know what other questions you have prepared here.
Oh yeah, take your time. We can do as much as you like.
Right, so I recommend through my book and through the people that I consult to have a wide variety of assets, depending on their sophistication, depending on how deep they want to get into it. The very first thing they tell me is they have a 401k equivalent, which is the RRSP. Mm-hmm. The 401ks, the RRSPs, this is money that is just ready to be taken in by the banks because it is ultimately not safe. The banks are going to take it over. The government's going to take it over. It's theirs. It's not yours. We are only supposed to take it out when we're 65. However, it's going to be worth nothing by then. So I suggest people buy real assets. Whatever that means to you, hold your money in real assets. Maybe you have a little piece of land. Maybe you own a small property somewhere, or a vacation home, maybe some gold or silver. If you don't have much money, if you only got a couple dollars in your pocket, the best thing that you can buy is junk silver. I'm sure your viewers already know that. That's my pick for those on a very tight budget, junk silver.
Sure. And maybe some canned soup.
Absolutely. I'm sure your viewers already know I didn't even go that route, but if you don't have storable food, then don't even think about gold and silver yet, because what are you going to eat? You need storable food, and you can get it relatively cheap, and it will store for, some of these products last up to 25 years. So that is one thing I highly recommend. In fact, that's the first step to preparation is storable food.
Yeah, and back to the bail-ins. If we had a big run on the banks, then I think the bank holiday that they had in Cyprus was that 2 weeks or 3 weeks that it lasted?
I don't remember the specific timeline there, but it was enough to really hurt some people. That's why they were rioting, because it wasn't something that happened overnight. It was taking quite a while, and people aren't ready. They don't have cash under their mattress. They assume the banks are going to be open tomorrow.
Yeah, and I think we would really, really have some type of a collapse here, a social collapse, if the banks were closed for even a week in America. And now I think you're in Canada. How's Canada doing compared to the U.S.?
Canada might be faring a little bit better, but as I talked about before, we have globalism. So that means the U.S.'s problem is Canada's problem. When Chile has an earthquake, it affects the copper prices all around the world. And this goes for any crop or anything. What someone else's problems are, that's our problems too. And one thing I like to mention to people here locally where I am in Toronto is that when they say, what's happening in the U.S. isn't our problem. Well, it absolutely is our problem, because 87% of Ontario's exports are going where? To the U.S. If the U.S. is in trouble, we're in trouble.
And now, do you think the coming collapse, or the collapse that we're actually experiencing right now, do you think that's a result of incompetence on the part of the central bankers, or do you think it's been engineered by some group?
It's multi-leveled. It's not 100% engineered, because they use the method of compartmentalization. So the guys on the lower end only know how to be enforcers. And then the one up, they only know what they're supposed to know. At the very top level, yes, it is fully engineered. Exactly what's happening is engineered. And I can explain this very simply. In the Eurozone, they had a debt problem. Countries like Greece would be the prime example, had far too much debt. Why? Because they were trying to use the same currency and the same interest rate that someone like Germany was. So this is unsustainable. And the result of that was a complete disaster. So what was the purpose of that? And it was specifically to collapse that country. Why? So that they could put pressure on the people, force them into a tyranny is basically what they were trying to accomplish with that.
Yeah. And now, along the same lines of engineering, do you think the price of precious metals is being manipulated? And if so, by who and why?
The price of precious metals has to be manipulated. One of the things I like to look at is the paper market. The paper market and the physical market are two completely different things. So I've got a lot of people telling me that, gold prices are going down. What happened to your gold? It's looking like it's bad and all this stuff. They can push the price down as far as they want. There's an infinite amount of paper precious metals sitting out there on the exchanges. They can create them and they can manipulate those prices. But if you own gold and you own it for the right reason, you don't worry about the price, because gold and silver and junk silver and other precious metals are there to preserve wealth. If the price headed down to a few $100s tomorrow, not that I'm saying it will, I'm just saying if it did, you wouldn't need to worry, because that's going to hold value forever. It's been holding value for thousands upon thousands of years. Of course, it's going to hold value into the future. Mm-hmm. And if it, even not even in our lifetime, you can hand it down to your children and their children. So it's a preservation of wealth mechanism. Companies like JP Morgan, for example, are known to push the prices down. They've been doing this for a while. And one great resource is GATA. The GATA is
yes. Bill Murphy's organization.
That's right. Yeah. They've been researching this and trying to expose them for quite a while.
Mm-hmm. And I don't really make financial recommendations on the show, but I'll tell you, if I saw gold go to $200 or $300, I'd be buying a lot of it tomorrow.
That's for sure.
I've been trying to, as much as possible, take advantage of the declines. Now, if somebody bought 10th ounce or quarter ounce gold coins, the premiums are a little bit higher than they are when they buy a whole ounce. But if you ever needed that for a barter situation, it'd be a little hard to make change for a full ounce of gold, especially if it goes to, as some speculated, $5,000 or $10,000 an ounce. Do you think it's worth it to pay that extra premium for the 10th ounce or quarter ounce gold coins?
Absolutely. The smaller the better. Whatever you can get, the smaller the better. And even for the less sophisticated investor, I recommend them to buy jewelry, especially if it's an elderly woman who they don't really want to invest. You can tell them, hey, buy some jewelry. The jewelry will not be worth what a normal piece of a bullion will be, but at least their money is held in something that's real. If you can't really afford too much, like I said before, get into silver, and junk silver being for those on a tight budget.
Sure, and then with gold jewelry, there's not really a precedent for confiscation like we had here in America in the 30s. You know, they made gold bullion illegal to be owned by citizens. So
absolutely, they may do that again. Who knows? So
there's no guarantee that they wouldn't do that again.
That's right.
But I don't think the individual person has to worry about them kicking in their door for their quarter ounce maple leaf or their 10th ounce gold eagles. I think they'd probably go after the ETFs and the large holdings of bullion probably first.
I agree.
And everything else would be voluntary, which I don't know if I would voluntarily give mine up.
That's for sure. You don't ever give yours up voluntarily because that's going to be the only thing that's worth something one day.
Yeah. And it's a good reason to diversify into silver, because here in America there's no precedent for confiscating silver.
I agree, and some economists do predict silver to reach the levels of where gold is too. I'm not saying that would happen. However, just because the price is very low right now doesn't mean it won't be very high one day.
Mm-hmm. And now in America, when they teach us financial literacy, they give us a little toy money set with toy nickels and pennies and dimes, and they teach us basically how to pay for a soda pop with a $5 bill and get change back. And that's pretty much the end of our financial literacy training. We don't learn anything about credit or interest or investing or creating a budget or the role of the Fed, fractional reserve banking, fiat currencies, none of that. Do they teach a little bit more in the Canadian schools?
They don't teach any financial literacy whatsoever in schools. The only thing that you may hear from the mainstream media or from other individuals is to invest in your RRSP, which again is the equivalent of a 401k. So they tell you, put your money in there, hold it for the long term, and you'll have an income after you retire. This is a very bad investment choice. I have taken all money that I have in paper assets out. It is absolutely too risky. I don't want to risk any of my money because I need this money for my children, my grandchildren, and if we go about taking the advice of these people in the mainstream media and other people who are just following along, we're going to be crushed. It's happened many times before. That's exactly why I wrote this book, because we need financial education. So I sat there and I read books that were less entertaining than watching paint dry. And I took that information, I put it together in a way that the average guy can read it and quickly learn really what's going on behind the scenes, and do it in such a way that will empower people to really, really prepare. And that's very important. We have to prepare. We have to make preparations now, right now, because we're in big trouble. This collapse has already gone underway.
Yeah, and now how bad do you think the collapse will get when it hits its apex? Do you think that cities will be unlivable? Do you think there will be a die-off due to government not being able to support those they've trained to depend on for their handouts?
Well, statistically, we can see 50 million people on food stamps. We can see 11 million people on disability. People are increasingly becoming dependent on their government. This is very frightening, especially at this time. If the economy was booming and confidence was up very high, we wouldn't need to worry so much. However, right now, the confidence has never been lower. Despite what the numbers may say, consumer confidence up and down and all this junk, real confidence is down. People are worried. People are dependent on their government. And ultimately, these are the people who are going to be rioting in the streets. There's going to be food riots. If they take away the welfare programs, there are going to be riots in the streets. The big cities are going to become very unsafe. But have no fear, because the police and the military are ready to come on the streets. They've been training for this for many years in big cities. They've put the police on the streets. They look just like the military. They're becoming indistinguishable now. But they put them on the streets, and they are ready to force down anyone who gets unruly. That's what I'm scared about.
Yeah, we saw a lot of that after the Boston Marathon bombing. We saw the police going door to door. There were some videos on YouTube of them dragging people out of their homes at gunpoint. And I'll put a link up to that in today's show notes for that YouTube video. But they were bringing people out of their house one by one with their hands on their head, with their rifles trained on them. And they would walk each one down the sidewalk, and there was somebody waiting at the end of the sidewalk to frisk each one and treating them like criminals. If at any time you would want your citizens to be armed, that would be the time you would want them to be armed.
Exactly. This is what I've seen before. Even in Katrina, they did the same thing. They disarmed the people.
Yeah.
I just did a mini documentary about this type of tyranny in the police state and stuff like that, and I put it on my YouTube channel. But people are not really prepared. But that's okay, because the vast majority of people always just go with the flow. They're just sheep. But it's the select few, the trailblazers, the people who are listening to this right now. These are the people who matter. We are the ones who are going to have to lead the way, and then the sheep will follow us, because that's going to be the easy path to take. Unfortunately, unless enough people wake up, a good 10% of people, we're not going to have the numbers we need to generate that flow in our direction. Mm-hmm. But I believe it's going to happen. People are waking up. There's more and more people interested in making preparations.
Yeah, I agree with you. So, David, you said you have a YouTube channel, and do you also have a website? Can you tell the folks where they can find you?
Yes, my YouTube channel is The Money GPS, all one word. And my website is themoneygps.com. And most of the information is the same on there, so either way you want to check it out. I also have a book, as we've talked about before, and that's available on Amazon. If you want to follow me, I do a lot of updates on my YouTube channel where we talk about preparations, and we get into the things that other people are really afraid to get into. And that's why I like your work here, because without these preparations, we're going to be in big trouble. Your 401k isn't going to save you.
No.
You need a full spectrum set of preparations made. That's your financial assets ready. You need a good getaway plan. You need storable food. You need everything prepared, not just gold, not just silver, not just a knapsack full of getaway things. People need that full spectrum, and that's going to be what makes or breaks us.
That's very, very true. And we have links in today's show notes to find David's website and his YouTube channel. We also have a link to purchase the Money GPS through Amazon by clicking the image of the book below. David, thanks again for coming on the show.
Thank you very much for having me on.
An economic storm is headed our way. The die has been cast. We must spread the word and prepare. The coming collapse will bring a contest between tyranny and freedom. If the patriot is to prevail, we must stand as one, pledge allegiance to our God, and defend the Constitution. If you are new to prepping or would like to learn more, read our 7-step survival plan. You can find it under categories on the left-hand side of our website. Thanks for listening to the Prepper Recon podcast. God bless, and happy prepping.